The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to the webinar. There was some, I began getting some text messages right now that were wondering, are you okay? And I just heard there's no webinar and so forth. So this is terribly embarrassing, but the fact is, yours truly completely forgot that the webinar was on this morning. So anyway, here we are. Very sorry. Gosh, I must have lost a few people because it's already over 20 minutes since it was supposed to have started. Profound apologies. Talk about not knowing what day in the week it is and so forth. All right, somebody's already texting in that there's possibilities I might be forgiven. I'm very happy to hear that. Okay. So, as always, kindly generate the intention to apply this for the purpose of establishing all sentient beings at the level of enlightenment. We've completed the first two sections of the ngöndro, and in some way we've actually connected with the complete and perfect path. We've taken refuge, which is general for all the various Buddhist paths, and then also with the engaging in the Mahayana, we no longer see enlightenment as just limited in terms of a private practice for our own peace, but something that goes beyond these dualistic notions of self and other entirely. This means the complete opening into the dimension of the absolute reality that's free from any conceptual constructs, and which, as a consequence, also is entirely free from any wish to retreat into a private nirvana. And as such, the Bodhisattva had vows to be there for all sentient beings. So we've completed that. Now, more specifically, well, we've not completed it, but we've certainly laid down the seeds in terms of our aspirations for the path. And of course, it's not as if we ever stop any of the aspects of the ngöndro as we practice. The reflections at the beginning, they are basic to our reflections in life. And and taking refuge and developing bodhicitta is also something that we never stop. So there's never really a sense that any of this is secondary or unimportant, that it's just something we need to get away with or be done with. The next sections, they are Vajrasattva and mandala offering, and that is what we sometimes refer to in terms of sakjang, the accumulation and the purification, or vice versa, purification and accumulation. And these are the means, skillful means for then accomplishing the practice itself. So we're very often held back by our confusion and what we call obscurations. Now, the Vajrayana is particular because it doesn't just see enlightenment in terms of the non-confusion, that is the Dharmakaya, but it also operates with how the Dharmakaya manifests compassionately at subtle and more manifest levels, what we call Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. And in there, we speak about the Buddha nature possessing what we call the innate three Vajras. Our basic ground is purity. And so, while indeed we presently have a body, speech, and mind that's caught up and entangled with confusion, and as such we would say that our body, speech, and mind, as it exists presently, is constructed through confusion, through karma and kleshas. But at the ground, the body, speech, and mind is uncorrupted. There's a basic purity that permeates all aspects of existence. And so the Vajrayana is the path of yoga, of connecting with the innate three Vajras, and as such also brings the body and the speech onto the path in addition to the mind. And this is understanding that all of apparent existence, our being and all of apparent phenomena innately are pure. And this is the mandala of Vajrasattva. So when we think in terms of our primordial purity, it's not just in terms of the mind, but it's also purity of body and purity of speech. So in the Vajrayana, we're engaging with these aspects of purity as they manifest in terms of deity, mantra, and wisdom. So with the Vajrasattva practice, we're beginning mantra Vajrayana, and we are invoking this quintessential purity that is Vajrasattva. Vajrasattva was a great bodhisattva that vowed that in the future, whoever would chant his dharani, that they might have all their broken samayas, all their broken vows, all their downfalls on the path, that they might purify through hearing the name of Vajrasattva or chanting his dharani. Dharani meaning long mantra. And so with that reflection then, the practitioner of the path invokes Vajrasattva in this spirit of calling on the power of Vajrasattva's vow. From our own side, we also engage with the practice of 4 vows that we're going to look at here. They're translated in various ways, but one is that when we're on the path, then inevitably we fall short of our aspirations, and it's so important that we don't then someone else also wondering whether there's a webinar. I want to just answer to this. It's so important when we fall short of, let's say we take refuge, or let's say we develop bodhicitta and so on, and then we fall short. And it's so important that we don't give up, that there's a sense that we can, we pick up where we left off, but also we purify it. It's not that we just say, oh, well, I'm not going to feel guilty about it. As some of you will know, Kyentse Rinpoche is very big on guilt, and in general, the notion that we have in guilt, of guilt in a modern society, is not exactly how we understand it in the Buddhist sense, because in the Buddhist sense of regret or even feeling ashamed is something that's an expression of sanity. And so it's not really that we are bad, it's more that, we slipped up. And that's almost predictable. So as much as we slip up, it's also the intelligence that recognizes the slip up that is a reflection of our basic purity, our basic sanity. So in a way, the more we can expose this, the cleaner we come, so to speak. So there's every reason to be quite straightforward about where we fall short in terms of the path. And all across the line in all Buddhist traditions, there is a way, a skillful way of re-establishing our commitment. So in the monastic tradition, twice a month, there's what in Tibetan is called sojong. I'm not sure what it's called in Sanskrit, but it is basically to restore the vows. And also in the general Mahayana, we have the ritual of the 35 Buddhas, and particularly in the Vajrayana, then we invoke Vajrasattva as this embodiment of purity. So we do that. And we do so on the basis of the 4 powers that will be described here, which are the power of somebody there who is, you could say, taking our confession. And also here we need to sort of discuss a little bit the word confession and how we understand it in our culture. And the Tibetan, which interesting actually sometimes could just mean parting. It's like we're parting from a neurotic pattern of practice. And that shakpa is sometimes translated as confession. And you say the practice is similar, but there's a very different attitude, I think, also particularly in terms of our cultural baggage. But we need somebody there who is listening to us and who also embodies the integrity of the path. So that's the strength of the support, the power of support. Then we have the power of regret. Then we have the power of vowing to not do it again, and we have the power of the practice, actually sticking to our commitment, and also in this case doing the actual practice of purification. So Khyentse Rinpoche writes, at the beginning of our practice, we reflected on how rare and precious this human existence is. To spur our endeavor, we reflected on impermanence. To increase our mindfulness, we reflected on the way actions lead to their results. Finally, we saw how the ordinary condition of samsara is never beyond suffering. And realizing the unchanging benefit of liberation, we understood the need to find and rely upon a spiritual teacher. This is actually very pithy. In here, in just a few lines, we have then the entire, these 6 reflections that we have looked at earlier. We have these all summarized in a few lines. So these are the outer reflections. Then, Rinpoche continues, we continued with the main part of the preliminary practice, first crossing the threshold of the Buddha Dharma by taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. After that, we developed bodhicitta, the wish to attain enlightenment for the sake of others, which is the root of the vehicle of the bodhisattvas. Now, as we enter the Vajrayana, we come to the meditation and recitation on Vajrasattva, in Tibetan, Dorje Semba, the purpose of which is to remove hindrances on the path to enlightenment. These hindrances are the obscurations and negative actions we have accumulated in the past. Vajrasattva is the sovereign lord of all the mandalas of the Vajrayana or diamond vehicle. To meditate on Vajrasattva is the same as to meditate upon all the Buddhas. His 100-syllable mantra is the quintessence of all the mantras. So in the Vajrayana, we would say Vajrasattva is the principal deity that's the foundation of all Vajrayana practice. Of course, this can be understood in so many different ways, and sometimes we would say any, a bit like the holographic principle, any Buddha possesses all the qualities of all the other Buddhas and so forth. But we associate Vajrasattva, and particularly in the Nyingma tradition, we associate this with the recognition of the infinite purity of all apparent phenomena. And so we have great teachings like what's called the Vajrasattva Maya Jala and so forth that teaches this innate purity that is the foundation of the Vajrayana path. Khyentse Rinpoche says, the main obstacles to progress along the path to enlightenment are the obscurations that come from our past negative actions. There are various kinds of negative actions. Some, like killing, stealing, lying, or cheating, are obviously intrinsically unvirtuous. Others are transgressions of vows and precepts that the Buddha or one's teachers have taught to help one progress spiritually. So we talk about 2 kinds of actions. One are the innate negative actions, which are like killing and so forth. And the others are more specifically according to what we have aspired to. So for ordinary people, there's nothing wrong with having a meal at night. But if you're a monk and you've taken the vows and you are the kind of monk that actually keeps not eating at night, if you take that as key, then eating at night is breaking the precepts, and so forth. So there's specific vows then that are intrinsic to the path. The the commitment to practice meditation is obviously, again, not something that ordinary people need abide by, but it's certainly essential for those that are practicing the path. So we talk about these two kinds of transgressions. So one is what we call the innate transgressions, and the other ones are the ones that are, gosh, what do we call them? According to, well, the transgressions of our vows. The main purpose of Vajrasattva practice is to purify these obscurations, meaning once these natural negative actions, or the ones that have to do with our vows, once we have acted on them, once we've followed, first of all, the basic confusion that leads to the kleshas, and then solidified the practice and the integrations of these kleshas through our karma, then these negative actions, they sit there and they consolidate the basic obscuration. So in this way, our purity is never robbed as such, ultimately, but temporarily it's obscured. There's an obstruction that prevents us from realizing this. And so these obscurations, they're in the way. Now the good thing about them is that they can be purified. Khyentse Rinpoche quotes where it says, "The only virtue of sin is that it can be purified." Now, some of us might have a bit of a problem with the word sin. We might have problems with various aspects of vocabulary, confession, sin, and all of that, because it's associated what we sometimes perceive as corrupt practices. But at the same time, we actually, outside of these institutions that we might have rejected, we've actually done a very poor job on a secular level, if you like, of developing vocabulary that accommodates these, in fact, archetypal malpractices. The fact of neurotic action, this is Chögyam Trungpa's vocabulary, trying to secularize the word sin. In Tibetan, it's dikpa, which is just the kind of actions that harm ourselves. And so, yes, we say negative actions, but that is sometimes perceived as slightly bland, and sin kind of comes with a bit of a bite. And so we might not like it, but in fact, as long as we don't have a larger vocabulary pertaining to some of these samsaric practices, we might have to contend with some of the translators not wanting to go all bland, and they might want to use words like evil, sin, confession, and so forth, virtue, and what have you. So I would like to, on a very personal note, always request us who are studying Buddhism and practicing Buddhism in a modern context to be a little bit lenient to that. For example, if you have a brilliant translation of the Way of the Bodhisattva, where there's vocabulary that is drawn from Christian and traditional context. But the bottom line here, apart from then this discussion on the word sin, the bottom line here is, and that's such an important point, that it can be purified. That's the thing. We're not stuck with primordial sin. We're not stuck with anything that's ingrained in who we actually are. The point is, however, that the quicker and the more we openly acknowledge and expose and do something about it, the more we can get rid of it. But the bottom line is it's purifiable, just like anything that we might need to like if our windows or our clothes are dirty, then they are extrinsic to the window and the clothes and so forth, and they can be purified. Khyentse Rinpoche says, in fact, there is nothing that cannot be purified, even the most apparently heinous deed. Okay, let's see if there's some question here. Is ngöndro mandala still present? Is ngöndro mandala still present during the Vajrasattva practice, or have we dissolved that and replaced it with Vajrasattva mandala? Ngöndro mandala, I'm not sure what that is. How do we respond when someone says, Buddhism, it says that everything is exactly as it's meant to be, so there's no need to change a thing? Well, what can you do? There's some very profound misunderstandings out there. And everything exactly as it's meant to be, well, there's a lot of suffering in the world. Are we then saying that the Buddha said that people are supposed to suffer? So that the Buddhism says exactly the opposite. But the thing is, some of the teachings on the what we call the definitive teachings, or the teachings on the absolute, they might lead people to this confused conclusion. So that's where sometimes the discourse, as we have it from some of the Prajnaparamita teachings from Zen or from Indo-Tibetan Buddhism, they might lead people to these kind of confused assumptions. What's ngöndro mandala? The refuge tree. Yeah. It's we at the end of the refuge in bodhicitta, we dissolve the refuge tree. And so when we do the Vajrasattva practice, we do the refuge in bodhicitta, like we chant it 3 times, but then dissolving it into ourselves, we then begin the practice of Vajrasattva, and it'll be described in detail now. It's such a terrible misunderstanding, isn't it? Some of these things that are sort of percolating around, you know. Anyway, there's certainly in Buddhism we're very conscious of relative truth and dealing with the suffering in relative truth and so forth. Also, the Bodhisattva path. It's very much about the compassion that attends to the experience that sentient beings go through. Hello, I would like to know if Khyentse Rinpoche recommends a guide to the words of my perfect teacher. He does. In fact, he very often would tell his students to read it 15 times. Also, what other books he recommends for who is practicing the ngöndro beside his book and Paltru Rinpoche's book? A guide to the, of course, Khenpo Ngakchung's book. No, that's definitely implicit. Sorry, that's not what he was recommending 15 times. But Khenpo Ngakchung's guide to the words of my perfect teacher is yes, Rinpoche would recommend it. I can't just now remember him speaking about it, but I can assert you 100% that he would warmly recommend that. Khenpo Ngawang Palsang was viewed as the re-embodiment of Vimalamitra, and he is viewed as somebody who reinvigorated the tradition of the Great Perfection. So his book is without any doubt something that's warmly recommended. Yeah, A Guide to the Words of My Perfect Teacher. Yeah, warmly recommended. What other books he recommends for practicing the ngöndro? The Way of the Bodhisattva, Rinpoche recommends a lot. And in general, I would personally recommend to just look at YouTube clips with Rinpoche teaching. First of all, because in there you'll find out what he recommends, but also just to get some, because so much of the teachings that Rinpoche in general gives and which is available on YouTube is really helpful for all aspects of the path. What other books there are in general? There's one written by his grandfather, Rinpoche's grandfather, who was a great master in the Nyingma tradition called Dunjum Rinpoche, Jigdal Yeshe Dorje, and he wrote a book called A Torch Lighting the Way to Freedom that we'd looked at here. So that also is something that undoubtedly is something he would warmly recommend. Yeah. Okay. The 4 powers. In order to purify negative actions completely, one needs 4 powers or strengths. The power of support, the power of regret, the power of antidote, and the power of resolution. Purification requires the support for us to express our remorse, make our confession, and repair the effects of our past negative actions. In this case, the support is Vajrasattva. Visualize him above your head, utterly peaceful and smiling, brilliant white, like a dazzling snow mountain illuminated by the rays of the 100,000 suns. Actually, I put this desktop the other day, and I like it so much because it actually gives, you can almost feel the fresh air in this picture, and even though it's not blinding, you can get some idea of where this image of a snow mountain that's hit by the rays of the sun, how bright it is. So, such is then the color of Vajrasattva. He is sitting in full Vajra posture upon 1,000-petal white lotus and moon disk. In his right hand, he holds a golden Vajra at his heart center, and in his left, a silver bell resting on his hip. Now, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know what Vajrasattva looks like, but just in case, I would think that I would have some. Yeah, I have a few. So here we have Vajrasattva, and above here we have some lineage masters. Right here you can see Longchenpa and somebody called Therak Lingpa. So Vajrasattva is wearing the 13 Sambhogakaya adornments, the 5 silken garments and the 8 jewel ornaments. I think if you look in Words of My Perfect Teacher and also in the guide to the Words of My Perfect Teacher, they would be described there. The 5 silken ornaments are such like the pendants that come fluttering down from the crown. This silk that he wears around him, the lower part of his what he's wearing there, his skirt, and what else? Yeah, and I think maybe these colored trousers. And then we have the 13 adornments. These include then the crown, the necklace. There's 3 necklaces. There's also the anklets, as well as the armlets and bracelets, as well as earrings. Yeah. Anyway, these adornments are referred to as the 13 adornments of the Sambhogakaya. And then he's in union with his consort, Vajraterpa, who holds a curved knife in her right hand, and in her left a skull cup filled with Amrita, the nectar of immortality. Visualize Vajrasattva not as someone made of flesh and blood, but like a rainbow in the sky, vivid yet empty. So Vajrasattva is not a deity in the sense of somebody out there, but Vajrasattva is the abiding condition of our natural purity. And so there's nothing of external about Vajrasattva, and yet we do visualize Vajrasattva on the crown of our head for several purposes, and particularly then on the external level then, right now where we are conceiving ourselves in terms of someone constructed out of karma, and hence also someone who wishes to purify obscurations, then we would simply just skillfully visualize Vajrasattva as external to ourselves. But innately, Vajrasattva is the abiding purity, the ground nature, Buddha nature, if you like. And as such, this has nothing tangible about it whatsoever. And yet it's vivid. It is what is the foundation of all apparent phenomena. And so in the absolute nature, this the nature of reality that we sometimes describe as the kayas and the wisdoms, is embodied in the form of Vajrasattva. But this form is not according to the premises of how we think about things. It's the freedom from duality, it's the freedom from subject and object, and it's completely intangible. So while we do represent Vajrasattva in this form, it is this intangible nature. So it's like a rainbow. Unlike a rainbow, Khyentse Rinpoche says, on the other hand, he is not simply something perceived physically, for he is pervaded with the wisdom and compassion of all the Buddhas. Think of him as your kind root teacher, appearing in the form of Vajrasattva. So we visualize the form of Vajrasattva, and yet also we don't think of him as some alien that we don't really know. We think of it simply as the presence of our teacher. So if we're students of Tsongsa Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche, we think this is Rinpoche who's here with me, and yet he's not ordinary. Sometimes we might think of Rinpoche in terms of, yeah, he's so-and-so old right now, he's in this place or he's in that place. He's born in Bhutan and so on. Then we reduce him into our particular optics, and that's fair enough because that's how we can relate to him. But his nature is beyond such, and that's why to recollect what Rinpoche truly is, we visualize him in the form of Vajrasattva. So that's the power of support. The second power is the power of deep, intense remorse for one's past actions. Now, we might not remember all our negative actions. We might have been sort of fairly innocent in this life. Our negative actions might be of a fairly domestic kind. But we really don't know what we've done in the past. And so we should have this determination to be free of negative actions. Khyentse Rinpoche says, if you had swallowed a virulent poison without realizing it, you would certainly feel desperate when you found out you were going to die. So the situation is here that we have that, but now we can do something about it. So we want to, how do you say it? Expurgate or something like that. We want to clear it out. Similarly, up to now, you have not been aware of the devastating power that has accumulated from the negative actions you have committed throughout many past lives. So the thing is also we are innocent in the sense that we also don't know what we have done in the past, and we don't really understand what they come to in the future. And this is where we're right now apprenticing with those that have that insight. We're not subscribing with blind faith to somebody that sort of paints a picture of doom and gloom, but we are aware of the power of consciousness and what it can do, and also we trust those that are not obscure to see how consciousness can play out. Khyentse Rinpoche goes on, today realizing that these negative actions are the very cause of your wandering in samsara and of all your suffering, you feel a strong regret at having acted so carelessly. If you did not feel this regret, you would simply continue to accumulate negative actions and perpetuate your suffering. But now you realize that you need to purify yourself, and so you turn to Vajrasattva to request the means to do so. So here again, we're using the skillful means of this abiding purity that is our nature, as visualized external to ourselves. And the point really here is to effectively generate this regret, the power of regret. Khyentse Rinpoche says, why is it Vajrasattva that we choose for this purification? When he vowed to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings, he made the wish, may I become a fully enlightened Buddha. May all beings be purified of their obscurations. So when I become a fully enlightened Buddha, may all beings be purified of their obscurations, their ignorance, and their negative actions, simply by hearing my name, seeing my form, thinking of me, or reciting the mantra that contains my name. So that's the power of regret. Regret alone is not enough. We have to put into action the means for purifying ourselves. This is done through the power of the antidote. Direct your whole mind towards Vajrasattva, confident that, since he is the all-encompassing sovereign of all mandalas, the union of all the Buddhas, he has the power to purify your obscurations. Again, here we describe Vajrasattva in terms of the all-pervading ground that is the foundation of all the Buddhas. So we refer to him as the all-encompassing sovereign of all mandalas. And as such, this nature being innate to us, Vajrasattva has the power to purify obscurations. Khyentse Rinpoche says, visualize Vajrasattva above your head as previously described, with a moon disk in his heart center, upon which is the white letter Hum, surrounded by the 100-syllable mantra. Recite, and this is then the liturgy from the short, excellent path to enlightenment. It says, on the crown of my head, on a lotus and moon, sits Guru Vajrasattva in union with his consort. From the mantra in his heart falls a stream of nectar, which purifies illness, harmful influences, negative actions, and defilements. Then recite the 100-syllable mantra as many times as you can. While reciting, generate strong devotion towards Vajrasattva, thinking, because of my past actions in this life and in all my previous lives, I am in this miserable situations in samsara. Grant your blessing now, so that I can purify myself, or I will continue to circle in samsara forever. This fervent supplication, offered with hands folded and tears of devotion in your eyes, invokes the wisdom mind of Vajrasattva to purify your negative actions. Now, for the modern rational person, to have devotion to the extent of having tears in your eyes is unusual. And so here it is that we are engaging with the path, not only in terms of a clinical, sanitized version of invoking psychological purity, if you like, but it is reaching down to the depth of the goodness of the universe, if you like, but reaching down to the depth of everything that is beautiful and true. And so here, it's no good to be detached and sort of have a hygienic approach to Vajrasattva practice. It's invoking the goodness that's at the core of our being. And so our teacher, here embodied as Vajrasattva, represents this goodness. And so we have an incredible fortune of being able to free ourselves from an ordinary pattern of confusion, and with the understanding of what samsara is, how it is constructed, how it is purifiable, and how this situation, if it's addressed, is not a problem, but if it's not addressed, it can be the cause of infinite and tremendous suffering. Understanding that we are at these crossroads, then we're not indifferent, and we invoke Vajrasattva with this deep sense of longing and appreciation for the presence of this enlightened sanity in our lives. And so with that deep devotion, then we invoke then the nature of Vajrasattva. Khyentse Rinpoche says, by the force of your prayer, from the letter Hung in Vajrasattva's heart, luminous nectar starts to flow, containing all his wisdom, loving kindness, and power. So we usually say that there's three qualities of the Buddhas. If we can sum up the qualities of the Buddhas, they are these three: wisdom, loving kindness, and power. Khyentse Nisum. And these are sometimes embodied in the Bodhisattvas Vajrapani, or rather Manjushri, Chenrezig, and Vajrapani. But we should understand that this is the very heart in terms of the manifest aspect of enlightenment. This is the natural radiance of disposition of enlightenment. Wisdom, loving kindness, and power. Sometimes we say wisdom, compassion, and power. Such is then this nectar, this luminous nectar that begins to descend into our body. If we're doing the Longchen Nyingtik ngöndro, as far as I remember, there was a curious place the translation says there's a stem coming down into our head, the size of four fingers width. Yeah, and that's, if I'm not wrong, I seem to remember this was translated. It's not this wide, it's this, it's just the distance. Vajrasattva is that distance above the head. It's not like we have this huge sort of, what would you call it? Pipeline. But anyway, this then, the nectar completely fills the bodies of Vajrasattva and his consort and flows out from the point of their union, from their toes and from all the pores of their bodies into the 1,000-petal lotus on which Vajrasattva is sitting above the crown of your head, and down through the stem, the end of which penetrates the opening in the top of your head, the Brahma aperture. Through this aperture, the nectar descends and fills your body, completely washing away all your obscurations and impurities, which pour forth from all the pores and apertures of your body. So this is cleansing. Your illnesses come out in the form of pus and blood, negative influences in the form of insects, scorpions, and snakes, and mental obscurations as dark, smoky liquid. The cleansing stream of nectar is so powerful that it washes away all your obscurations like a river in flood, carrying away all the trees and rocks in a valley. As these obscurations flow out of your body, the earth below you opens down to 7 levels below the surface. There, in the form of a red bull, with mouth gaping open, is Yama, the Lord of Death. The dirty liquid enters his mouth, and he swallows it, and as he swallows it, turns into nectar. Now all your karmic debts, your past actions have been totally purified and transformed into wisdom. Similarly, not only is your body purified, but even the ordinary aggregates and elements, your flesh, blood, bones, and skin, are no longer gross material substances. They become transparent, as if made of light. You are completely clear and luminous inside and out. Then you consider that this red bull and all those to whom you have passed karmic debts are completely satisfied. The earth beneath you again closes again, and you're completely purified. Your body pure and transparent like crystal. Now, it's important when we do this that this is not like an external practice that you're doing this while you're meditating, but there should be a sense of this permeating all aspects of our existence, that we feel clean, that there is a sense of having done away with what holds us back, and there's a sense of purity. And also there's the relief. We might have had karmic debts, we might have had unpaid and unfinished business, and as we've offered to the yama in the form of the liquids that then satisfy yama, that these liquids have been purified into nectar, we consider that everything is taken care of, that we want to practice Vajrasattva in the sense of all is good now. It's not as if that means that we don't have to attend to what we need to attend to, and we need to, pay taxes, attend to business, do our work, clean up the yard, deal with difficult interpersonal relationships and whatnot. Sure, all of that. But we do this with confidence and ease that comes from this purification. So we don't just do this sort of strange, weird, foreign practice that supposedly is supposed to do something wonderful as something that's external to us, but we are touching on the very, very core of our being and settling into a state of clarity where everything that needs to be clarified has been clarified. Unfinished business has been finished. We have closure. We have an ease with ourselves and with our circumstances. This is what all aspects. It's not as if we're compartmentalizing Vajrasattva practice into some particular spiritual corner of our existence. This permeates every aspect of who we are. Otherwise, then it's just a very strange little ritual. Do we begin by first visualizing Vajrasattva in front of us and subsequently above our head, or do we go straight to visualizing him above our head? Straight to visualizing him above our head, as per the... what does Vajra Topa translate into? Good question. Doji Niyama in Tibetan. I don't know what it actually translates into. Should we see here? If I can figure out how to write it. There you go, Vajrasattva. That's as good as it gets. I'm not quite sure. Try and Google it. There's nothing Google can't answer. And let us know what the answer is. But anyway, just about the question about how we visualize Vajrasattva. On the crown of my head, yeah? So we start with that right away. Somebody asked for the whole picture. What? You can't see Vajrasattva? You want the whole lineage? Okay. Samantabhadra, Vajrasattva, Garabdorje, Sri Singha, Vimalamitra, Padmasambhava, the great translator Vairocana, Longchen Rabjam, and Mindraling Tadak Lingpa, Gyurma Dorje, and Ekajati. Yeah. Okay. So the Amrita from Vajrasattva still continues to flow down, progressively filling your body. As it fills your head, you receive the blessings of Vajrasattva's body and all the negative actions you have committed physically, such as killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, are purified. You receive the vase initiation, and the seed is planted for realizing the Nirmanakaya, the manifested body of the Buddhas. So this is how we receive the four empowerments, also in conjunction with Vajrasattva. When the nectar reaches your throat, you receive the blessings of Vajrasattva's speech and all the negative actions you have committed verbally, such as lies, idle chatter, slander, and harsh words, are purified. You receive the secret initiation, and the seed is planted for realizing the Sambhogakaya, the body of perfect enjoyment. Then, as the nectar flows down to your heart level, you receive the blessings of Vajrasattva's mind, and all your negative thoughts, such as animosity, envy, and false views, are purified. You receive the third empowerment, the wisdom initiation, and the seed is planted for realizing the Dharmakaya, the absolute body. I'm going way over time. Gosh, I'm so terrible today. Okay, let's just reach the end of the four empowerments. Finally, as the nectar reaches your navel center throughout your body, you receive the fourth initiation, the initiation of word, which indicates the absolute nature. All the subtle defilements of body, speech, and mind are purified. You receive the blessing of the adamantine wisdom of Vajrasattva, and the seed is planted for realizing the Vajrakaya, the unchanging adamantine body of the Buddha. So this is then, as we purify, then we consider that we are continually then receiving the four empowerments. All right, so this is up to, then we're going to, this is the outer practice of Vajrasattva, and now we're going to be looking next time at the inner practice of Vajrasattva. Any questions? Okie good. Emma Ho, wonderful, good. All right. Once again, apologies for just being lost in space and time here and being dreadfully late. Thank you for the person actually who called up somebody who had my phone number. This person texted me. Oh gosh. Anyway, shall see you next week. Thank you very much. Let's see if I can find the dedication. Oh. Through this virtue may all beings throughout existence awaken together without a single being left behind. In the pure realm of the luminous essence, the ground of the great perfection, may they remain inseparable from the kayas and wisdoms. Through all our births, wherever we may be born, may we be endowed with the 7 good qualities of the higher realms. As soon as we are born, may we meet with the Dharma and have the freedom to practice it properly. At that time, may we please the holy gurus and practice the Dharma throughout the day and night, realizing the Dharma and accomplishing its essential meaning. May we cross the ocean of existence in that life. Thoroughly teaching the holy Dharma in this world, may we never tire of accomplishing the benefit of others. By this vast benefit of others, without partiality and bias, may all attain Buddhahood together.